Well, good to have you with us here on the South African Morning. I'm Gareth Edwards. Let's talk athletics now, and top athletics. Some of the world's biggest sporting stars are calling for more conversation around mental health. This after Naomi Osaka's withdrawal from the French Open, the four-time Grand Slam winner refusing to do media interviews, saying she was battling depression and also anxiety. What a pleasure it is. Sports psychologist Dr Kirsten van Heerden joining us to talk about this ongoing debate around sport and mental health. Well, Dr van Heerden, good morning to you. Let's just talk about how difficult this is for athletes at the level of Naomi Osaka to handle the pressure of being a professional, but then having to handle the public spotlight as well. I imagine very difficult to get your head around.
No, absolutely, and I appreciate so much you asking me to be on your show and talk about this, because mental health for elite athletes is something that we don't often speak about, but it's critical. And I think what's happening with Naomi Osaka, you're seeing almost people are going, well, you are you're a Grand Slam winner. In a sense, what do you have to be sad about? What do you have to be anxious about? And a misunderstanding of what mental health actually is. But as you're saying, at that top level, there's an incredible amount of pressure. And I think just because you're an athlete doesn't mean you want to necessarily be in the public eye. I get it's a package. But yeah, some athletes thrive in that and some really don't. So absolutely, it's really tough. We even see people like Michael Phelps, most decorated Olympic athlete ever, also speaking about this issue of himself suffering from mental health issues.
I was listening to a podcast involving sports psychology the other day, Dr. van Heerden, and I think part of the impression and the misrepresentation of how we view these top-end sports athletes is that they look so strong on court, around a racetrack. They come across as confident, some might even say arrogant, the way they handle themselves from a performance perspective. But how do you, as a sports psychologist, unpack what is actually happening once they take that helmet off or put that tennis racket down? How do you get to the issue of helping them live in the world off of the court and handle those pressures?
For sure, and it's another great question, because it shows some understanding of what's going on, and it's two different elements for me. You have this idea of mental toughness and then mental health, and I think people get confused with them. As you're saying, you look at these athletes and think, wow, they're mentally tough, they're strong, physically they're tough. They can't possibly suffer from mental health issues. And they're two separate issues. They're kind of somewhat overlapping, but mental toughness for me is about that ability to execute under pressure and perform, whereas mental health is about the person and well-being. And when I sit with athletes,
Doctor, I hope I'm not losing you. We are losing a little bit of your reception through to us from wherever you are in Joburg. Dr. van Heerden, I'm sorry, I lost you a little bit there due to connection. I'm going to come back to you with perhaps this last answer. Hopefully it stays with us. No, my team telling me I'm looking at my screen. It's why I'm looking away. It looks like we have lost Dr. van Heerden. No, anyway, welcome to technology, boys and girls. Dr. van Heerden, you're back with us. Don't you just love Zoom? It just works when it wants to, doesn't it? Dr. van Heerden, final question to you. Forgive me on this. As I say goodbye to you now, the way that Naomi Osaka has been castrated in the media for not wanting to talk to the media, and quite rightly wanting to protect herself and her mental strength, but being given criticism for that. That can't be fair, surely.
It's absolutely not fair. And if you read a lot about it, people are saying if she had some physical illness or something physically wrong with her that she couldn't go to the press conference, everybody would understand. But now, because she's saying that she's suffering from mental health issues, all of a sudden people are saying that's just not good enough. And again, it just perpetuates a stigma around mental health, and it prevents other people speaking out and getting help. So I commend her for speaking out. It's absolutely critical. But the reaction has shown that the stigma still exists.
It really has. Sports psychologist Dr. Kirsten van Heerden speaking to us. And Nandi Shabalala, this is something that I know is very close to your heart. You and I have been speaking about it. What I've not heard is other athletes coming out and saying to the media, back off. Let her have the space that she needs. What the conversation is still about is she's not attending these media conferences. This is not the problem, people.
That's not the problem. And I think everybody's been playing it so safe, other players. Sitting there talking about how, yes, it can be tricky, it can be difficult, but we're coping. This is how we deal with it. It's not about how they are dealing with it. It's about the fact that the problem is there in the first place. So I think a lot of the players and a lot of her colleagues and her teammates are just playing it a little bit too safe and not understanding what the crux of the issue actually is.
Yeah.